Hey, welcome to math. We're going to be doing similar kinds of problems for the next 2 or even 3 days. And the first page that we're doing is today's page, which is page 20. And you'll notice for the next couple too, though, for tomorrow at least, they're going to be similar. So you're going to have at least a couple days to learn these same skills, which means if it doesn't totally make sense today, you're going to get tomorrow too. So just realize what we're doing is becoming more challenging in fractions, but I think you can do it. So we did a problem kind of like this on Tuesday, where you see, okay, I've got 2/4 plus 1/8. I need to add fractions, but I'm used to adding fractions where the denominators are the same. And then you just add the numerators and just add up straight across the top. But in these cases, we can't quite do it because this one's fourths, this one's eighths. So I need to put those into the same terms. They have to have the same denominator if I'm going to add them, right? You can't add fourths and eighths. So I need to find an equivalent fraction for at least one of these where I can make the denominators be the same. So in this case, it's not too hard because I can see right away, oh yeah, 8 is twice 4. I just doubled it, right? So if I can put this fraction 2/4 into eighths, then it's going to be easy peasy. I can just add it right straight across. So remember how we were doing this to find equivalent fractions? I'd say 2/4 equals how many eighths? And it looks like this. 2/4 equals how many eighths? And I can tell by drawing on it that it's 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths. So 2/4 is 4 eighths. But if I didn't draw it, because sometimes you can't draw them because the numbers are too big, I can tell like this too. This is really the way to do it. 4 times what equals 8? Well, it's 2 because I doubled it. And whenever you do the top, you do the bottom, right? So 2 times 2, I multiply that by 2, I doubled it. So I'm going to double this. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/4 is 4 eighths. So what I do is I say equals, and then I substitute 4 eighths for 2/4 because 4 eighths is 2/4. And then I add the 1/8. And now I set myself up for success because I know we're still talking about eighths. 4 plus 1 equals 5. So 2/4 plus 1/8 equals 4 eighths plus 1/8, which equals 5 eighths. So that's how you do it. 2/4 plus 1/8 equals, you could just skip right there, it's 5 eighths. So that's a way to do it for problems when it's clear, oh yeah, I just need to double this one to turn into eighths. But you're going to notice sometimes it doesn't quite work out that perfectly. So like for instance, if you have, let's say 2/5 plus 1/2, so like one number's even, one's odd, I can't just double the 1/2 to get fifths, right? I could turn 1/2 easily into fourths, but not fifths. So sometimes you're going to get examples like this where you're going to have to find an equivalent fraction for both numbers before you can add them. And that's kind of new information for us. That's trickier because I can't just double one or half one or something. I've got to find an equivalent fraction for both. So what numbers do 2 and 5 both go into? That takes us back to talking about common multiples. And that's why multiples and factors lead into fractions. Well, I could look at my multiplication table and say, okay, well, what do both 2 and 5 go into? Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then 5, 5, 10. Oh, I just saw 10 both times, right? So 2 goes into 10 and 5 goes into 10. So you could do that, where you just look at each one and just try to figure out which number they both go into. Or another way to do it is you can just multiply those numbers, right? If you multiply them together, you know they're both going to go into that number because 5 times 2 equals 10. So 5 goes into 10 twice, 2 goes into 10 5 times. So they both are going to go into 10. So however you do it, we're going to need to turn these numbers into tenths if we're going to add them up. So let's first try the 2/5. So now that we know we're going to have to put them into tenths, and we did that just by multiplying those numbers, like, oh yeah, they both go into 10, obviously, because they can multiply together to be 10. 5 times 2 is 10, so they're going to go into tenths. So now I just have to do the equivalent fraction thing for both numbers. And it seems like a lot of steps, and fractions sometimes have a lot of steps, but it's still kind of interesting because they're like these puzzles, you're moving the pieces around. Okay, we need to make 2/5 into tenths. So I doubled the 5 to get to 10, right? Remember, 5 times 2. So now whatever I do the bottom, I do the top. Whatever I do the top, I do the bottom. What's 2 times 2? 4/10. Okay, so I just solved it for 2/5. It's going to equal 4/10. And now I'm going to add 1/2 in tenths. So what's 1/2 in tenths? Let's find out. So 1/2 equals how many tenths? Well, what did I do to get from 2 to 10? Remember, you multiplied 2 times 5. 2 times 5. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So what's 1 times 5? 5. And that makes sense, right? 1/2 is 5/10. 1 is half of 2, 5 is half of 10. So 1/2 is 5/10. So now I substitute 5/10 up here, and look at this. Now it's easy peasy, right? We're still talking about tenths. If they're the same thing, you just add them right up, straight across. So, okay, so we're talking about tenths, I know that. But how many? Well, 4 plus 5. What's 4 plus 5? 9. So sometimes you've got to do that kind of thing, where each number has to be changed a little bit. And the way I found out what to put them in, which denominator, I just multiplied 5 times 2, because I know for a fact 5 times 2 is 10, 5 goes into 10, and 2 goes into 10. So I know for a fact, whatever I multiply those two numbers, whatever I get, they'll both go into it, right? So 2/5 is 4/10, 1/2 is 5/10, and then once you do that, you just add them up, 9/10. So you're going to be doing some problems like that today. And then there's one last thing that I want to show you. And remember when I said we're going to be doing this stuff tomorrow too, and maybe even Monday? In fact, I think probably Monday. So you got a few days for this to sink in. So if you just kind of get this for now, you're doing well. But I'm going to show you one more thing, and I'll show it to you again tomorrow. So you'll have a couple days to kind of let it sink in. And that is, I'm going to solve a problem for you. It is this one, number 5. 7/10 plus 1/3. Okay, so it's going to be similar to what we just did now, right? But I'm going to show you a new skill at the very end. Okay, so 7/10 plus 1/3. So what number do they both go into? Well, what do 3 and 10 go into? I'm just going to take the fast route and just multiply 10 times 3 like we did before, because I know they'll both go into that number, right? 10 times 3 is 30. I know for a fact 10 goes in because I just multiplied it by 3. I know for a fact 3 goes in because I just multiplied it by 10. 10 times 3 equals 30. 10 goes into 30. 3 goes into 30. So we're going to turn them both into 30ths. But I need to find out, what do I put up here? So 7/10 is how many 30ths? Well, 10 times what equals 30? Remember I multiplied by 3, so times 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. That's when you're finding equivalent fractions. What's 7 times 3? Hopefully by now you're getting comfortable just knowing these kind of answers. But you're not going to know all of them, so sometimes just look at this if you don't know it. 7 times 3 is 21. Okay, I solved the first part. 7/10 is 21/30. But what about 1/3? How many 30ths is that? Well, remember I multiplied 3 times 10 to get 30? So whatever you do to the top, you do the bottom. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do the top. So what's 1 times 10? Oh, well, you know that, 10. Oh, substitute 10/30ths for 1/3. Okay, I can do that. Okay, a lot of steps, but I'm with you, Daniel. I'm with you. Turn them into 30ths. Found out how many 7/10 was in 30ths, 21/30. Found out how many 30ths 1/3 is. It's 10/30ths. Now just add them up. 21 plus 10 is 31. So for today, if you just put the answer is 31/30ths, I'm going to say nice job. But I'm going to show you this new skill today, and I'll show it to you again tomorrow. Because it says write each answer in its simplest form. So what that means, as you know, is reduce it as much as you can. If you can divide them both by 2 or 3, do it. But if you have a number like this, where the top is bigger than the bottom, it's called an improper fraction. It's improper. It's not proper. It's because it's like weighted all big on top. So it's like this kind of like big monster. He's like way too big on the top. He's got this little body. And he's all wobbly. Oh, improper fraction. It's too big up there. Top's too big. So here's what you do to improper fractions when you simplify. You got to turn them into what's called a mixed number, which is like 1.5 or 2.5. So remember when we talked about how 1 can equal like 2/2 or 3/3? It doesn't really matter as long as you have how many pieces it's been cut into, 4/4. As long as you have all the pieces, you've got the whole thing, right? It doesn't matter if your pizza's been cut into 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, 8/8. It's like if you have 2/2, you've got the whole thing. Your 3/3, you have the whole thing. So in this case, what you want to do is find out how many holes do I have in there. So 30ths is going to be a whole, right? That's the whole thing. It's like the pizza's been cut into 30 pieces, which would be a lot of pieces. But you'd have all of them. You have every piece. So you have the whole thing. So you've got 30/30ths. It's like, I've got the whole thing, even though there's tiny pieces. And then what's left over? So 30/30ths plus, well, let's see, you've got 30/30ths, and then you've just got 1 over, right? Plus 1/30th. Because 30 plus 1 equals 31. 30/30ths equals 30/30ths plus 1/30th. So then, here's the last step, and then I'll be done. 30/30ths plus 1/30th is the same thing. 30/30ths is 1. It's like the AKA, also known as. And you have the funny 1/30th there. So that's how you simplify the answer. We found the answer, 31/30ths. That was hard just to get that. And then we think, how many holes in there? So how many 30/30ths can I find? Oh, I can find 1. And then there's one little extra 30/30ths because 30 plus 1 equals 31, right? Just kind of switching it around. 31 equals 30/30ths plus 1/30th. So that is AKA 1 and 1/30th. So if you can, simplify as many of these as you can. If you get to funny improper fractions, see if you can do that. So the problem, and I already solved one for you, but please do page 20 today. Actually, yeah, it's page 20. Thanks.